It's not every day that you hear about locked room or sealed room mysteries. These are mysteries where all entrances and exits to a room are locked or sealed. The perpetrators of the crime must have either vanished or committed the crime without leaving any evidence, making it seem like an impossible crime. They are intriguing because they often require complex and creative solutions to solve. It's also possible that the perpetrator used a clever way to enter and leave without being noticed, or that the crime was committed by someone on the inside. These cases are rare and are often written about in detective fiction. Today we will tell you about a real-life example of a locked room murder involving a Korean in the Philippines. Let's take a look. An impenetrable building with security guards armed with shotguns scattered throughout, CCTV cameras, visitor logs, elevator access cards, and parking control. It sounds like a building for dignitaries, celebrities, or other very important people. But this building in the capital of the Philippines, Manila, houses ordinary but wealthy people. It's the G Tower, a luxury condominium for the middle and upper class. It's where a Korean woman in her 30s surnamed Yu was living in 2012. After finishing her studies in the Philippines, Yu was getting ready to return home to Korea to start a language school business. She never made it back, as she was found dead at her home, apartment 1604, on the afternoon of June 28th of that year. Her mysterious death has eventually ruled a suicide, which we will come back to later. But there were signs that pointed to murder. The body was first found by Yu's business partner, a Filipino man. He is said to have been worried about his colleague as she didn't show up to a meeting a day earlier. But because of the building's tight security, the business partner couldn't knock on his colleague's door on his own. He had to persuade a condo staff to get access to Yu's apartment. Strangely, the door to the home was reportedly unlocked. The business partner discovered Yu's body laying on the floor as soon as he stepped into the home. She was wearing a comfortable-looking dress and had slippers on. Both her arms were raised above her shoulders and her eyes were wide open. That showed she had a sudden death. There were no wounds on her body. There were, however, fingernail marks on her neck, as if she had been strangled. A local doctor said after an autopsy that there wasn't any evidence of rape. When found, the body, which was said to be half naked, was covered with a blanket from head to toe. That made suicide an impossibility, as someone had to cover the body with a blanket. Other than her body, there was said to be nothing out of the ordinary, nothing suspicious in the apartment. There weren't any signs of ransacking or a scuffle, such as misplaced objects or overturned furniture, but a fan and TV were on. There was also no evidence of forced entry or burglary. This was according to a local police officer who was in charge of the investigation at the time. But close friends and acquaintances of Yu said something was off. They described her as a very neat and tidy person. They said their friend would never leave makeup containers open. On the day her body was found, the vanity where Yu kept her makeup was said to be a mess. All of her friends concluded that she was likely in the process of applying her makeup and suddenly had to leave the vanity unattended. There was something else. The faucet of the bathroom sink was on. Was she getting ready to go out? Was she getting ready to have someone over? That seemed to be the case, as her makeup wasn't put away, the water was running in the bathroom, and her fan was on. And it made sense to them, as people often leave the fan on when doing makeup, especially in countries with warm climates such as the Philippines. Local police first suspected that Yu was murdered by someone she knew, with the cause of death being asphyxia by strangulation based on the nail marks on her neck. They thought the suspect was a friend or acquaintance because, as I mentioned before, it is very difficult to gain access to the condo due to its strong safeguards. To let outsiders in, tenants have to go downstairs to the first floor to fetch them and likely get a pass for their visitor in the lobby. Then, residents have to tag their keycard on an elevator reader that only allows them to go up to the floor they live on. It's basically like some hotels where only guests can access elevators to go up to their rooms. And so, investigators looked at elevator CCTV footage to check Yu's recent movements as well as to see if she had any visitors recently. She was caught on camera going to work 2 days prior on June 26 and coming home from work later that day. Both times, she was alone. Those were the last times she was seen on CCTV footage alive. That means she never left her apartment after she came home from work. Police then wondered whether anyone was staying with Yu, but they determined there could be no such person as recent footage showed her always being alone when going to and from her home. Even in the apartment, there was no indication that anyone else lived there or was temporarily staying there. Then, who could have killed her? Police didn't have any leads at that point and were baffled. The case remained a mystery until a real estate broker that Yu had once dealt with shared an important piece of information. The broker said Yu had issued a second access card for the condo, not because it had expired or she lost her original card, but because she needed another one. But only one card was found at the scene of the crime. Who had the other card? Did Yu lend a friend or acquaintance that second card? It was said to have been given to Joseph John Cabrera. Cabrera was a local and also Yu's ex-boyfriend and business partner who was known to be pretty wealthy. Even though they had broken up way before Yu was killed, Cabrera apparently didn't return the access card. This led the police to believe that he could have gained entry to her home at any time. Detectives were sure they had their guy and were about to name him the key suspect. But certain details, including a lack of records, ruled him out. There was absolutely no trace of Cabrera at the condo. Access card readers in the building kept logs of which cards were scanned. It was found that only the original card, the card that was issued to Yu when she first moved in, was scanned in the condo around the time of the incident. In addition, no one related to Yu was caught on CCTV cameras before or after her death, including Cabrera. The investigation hit another snag. Tenants, as well as police, began to wonder how someone could gain access to the heavily fortified building, evade security personnel and cameras, kill Yu, and leave unnoticed. It was as if the perpetrator vanished into thin air like a ghost after carrying out the crime. Could the perpetrator have used the emergency staircase? That was highly unlikely, as the door to the staircase could only be accessed from the hallway and not the other side. Let's stop here and take a closer look at G Tower. The condominium didn't necessarily have a perfect security system, and that's because there were no CCTV cameras in the hallways of each floor. Cameras were only installed in elevators. No one knows what happened in those hallways, including in the hallways of the 16th floor, except maybe residents on the same floor. Could it have been one of Yu's neighbors? They were the only ones who had access to the 16th floor. A Korean man who lived right next door in apartment 1605 told G Tower security staff on June 28th, the day that Yu's body was found, that he heard her scream a bit past 12 the night before. He is even said to have reported the incident to the Korean embassy. But something didn't add up once again. There were discrepancies between his testimony and the police investigation. Local police concluded that Yu died sometime between 9:41 and 10:30 a.m. on June 27th, the day before her body was found. The reason for this was there were records that showed she exchanged text messages with her friend until 9:41 that morning. This didn't match the neighbor's story. He said he heard Yu scream more than 12 hours later. By that time, it's presumed that she was already dead. Did he remember correctly? Did he get all the details right? When the neighbor talked to the embassy, he is said to have been very confident with his testimony. He even said he would actively cooperate with the investigation if needed. He told them that as he was about to enter his apartment after leaving work, he saw a police line next door and recalled hearing a scream the night before. He was very detailed in his explanation, saying he remembered sitting at his desk after returning home from work and hearing the scream. Aside from the times not matching, the neighbor wasn't caught on elevator CCTV cameras, not even once on June 28th. His testimony that he saw the police line on his way home from work, that he even went to work at all that day for that matter, was a lie. This lie, as well as the fact that he suddenly moved out soon after Yu's death, made him very suspicious. This neighbor gave the same statement he shared with the embassy to the production crew of the Korean mystery show. The crew covered the case in August 2012, 2 months after the incident. They traveled to Manila to take matters into their own hands. They got the phone number of Yu's neighbor from the embassy and called him. He described his relationship with Yu as simply friendly neighbors and stressed he had nothing to do with her death. But after that call, he disappeared. While suspicious, local police didn't look into him further because there was a lack of evidence tying him to the crime. They also didn't interview any of the tenants on the 16th floor because, surprisingly, G-Tower management didn't allow them to. The investigation by local authorities was insufficient to begin with, even though it was purportedly a murder case. And the family and friends of the victims were said to be very angry about this. It is said that the first 48 hours are critical in solving a homicide. Obtaining elevator CCTV footage is said to have started some 2 months after the incident because of tenant privacy issues. They were initially said to have been against sharing the footage. Local police were also unable to unlock Yu's mobile phone. They reportedly asked the Korean production crew to take the device back with them to unlock it. Due to the delays in obtaining evidence, the police were unable to prove this to be the case beyond reasonable doubt. There were no signs of forced entry or evidence that anyone else was in the apartment or the building for that matter. More than 10 years have passed since Yu's death. There are no new clues or suspects. Perhaps there was, but they were let go. The police may have failed to uncover some crucial details in the case. If there had been a proper investigation at the time, perhaps the real killer would have been caught and brought to justice. The case has likely been archived by Philippine authorities. The Korean government, its embassy in the Philippines, and the production crew have been unsuccessful in making progress in the case. It's up to local law enforcement to find the person responsible and finally bring closure to the family. If the Philippine authorities commit to re-investigating the case, they have the best chance of finding the truth. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.